to be late. Lie, 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 lie. Okay, so Shalom Aleichem to Moshe is joining us for the first time, and Aryeh Meira. Is that comfortable for you, Aryeh? Can switch chairs if you want. I won't say anything. And of course to my mother that watches every week, and Avital, and Katie, and Carlos. We have a whole crowd that watches afterwards. And you know, I'm amazed on Facebook, it's like 400 people every week, at least click for 1 second on the video. I don't know how much they actually watch. But you just never know. And Zahava's there. Shalom Aleichem to Zahava. And Yael, and whoever else wants to join us. If you want water, Moshe has water here. If you want tea, you can get from the other room there. Okay, so we're continuing, of course, to David. David who watches every week and sends me corrections in Hebrew. Well, Hashem. So we're on lesson Ayin Vav 76, and we really just did the beginning. It's a really interesting lesson because Rabbi Nachman starts off with the phrase "Vayhi achar dvarim ha'ele ve'Elokim nisat Avraham," and it was after these things passed that Hashem tested Avraham. That's the basis for this lesson, Likutey Moharan. And then he goes into talking about istaklut, vision. And he says that there's direct vision, there's returning vision. And he talks about the physical attributes of seeing. That in order to see, we have to have the eye point out light and receive the light that reflects back. So for example, whatever's behind me, my eye can't see because it's not looking there. But let's say this was behind me, now I look at it, what's going out of my eye is light. It's really immediately receiving the light. But what he's saying is the light is going out, it's seeing the object, and it's reflecting the object back into the eye, and then going into the mind, and the mind is interpreting it. This is his analogy for explaining our relationship with Hashem and our emunah with Hashem. That and receiving the shefa from Hashem, receiving abundance from Hashem. In order to do that, we have to create a vessel, we have to send out a light that goes out and receive a light that returns. And that's where we are. So we started off talking about vision and how vision works. And now we're continuing on Bet. So this is the pirush here. לאחר שבאר שהידיעה בהסתכלות נעשית באור היוצא וחוזר אל העין, after he explained that knowing comes from vision that is created by light that goes out and comes back into the eye, right? Because this is the analogy for knowing Hashem. How do we know Hashem? We have something that happens with our relationship with Hashem, and then it comes back to us. For example, let's just take the most basic thing. You get a bill, you don't have money for the bill. You say to Hashem, Hashem, I don't have money for the bill. Can you send me money, please? And then you get money, and you can pay the bill. That is the process that he's talking about now. Now, if a person truly believed that Hashem sent the money to that person, then they strengthen their relationship with Hashem. If someone is skeptical, then they might say, well, maybe it was Hashem, maybe it wasn't. But somebody who knows that it's Hashem that they're talking to, and they're asking Hashem to give them that abundance, then they know that comes from Hashem, and that strengthens their relationship with Hashem. Shalom Aleichem to Yael. So that's what he's saying here. לאחר שבאר שהידיעה בהסתכלות נעשית באור היוצא וחוזר אל העין. יבאר, now he's going to explain, שההסתכלות זו עושה כלי וגבול דבר הנראה. When we look at something, so if I look at this bottle, I'm creating a size and measure and limitation to the bottle. Meaning, if I close my eyes and you said to me, imagine a bottle. I don't know how big it is, I don't know where it is, and also I have aphantasia. I don't know if you know what that is. It's an amazing thing I discovered at the Shabbos table. You close your eyes, you don't see anything. Apparently, other people, I wouldn't know this, they look at the bottle, close their eyes, they still see the bottle. I close my eyes, see nothing. My dreams are nothing. Everything is all deep in my mind, nothing visual. I just thought that everybody sees this way until one Shabbos we had a guest said, let me do a test at the table. Everyone imagine an apple. And I'm like, okay. And now close your eyes. Do you see an apple? And everybody's like, yeah, I see an apple. And I said, no, I don't see an apple. She's like, you have aphantasia. Okay, so the rest of you can look at this and see a bottle. But when I close my eyes, it's just black. But I can imagine what a bottle would look like. But when my imagination is one thing, but when I look at it, now I know exactly what it looks like. I know where it is, I know what it looks like, and that's what he says here. Oseh kli ugvul l'davar hanireh, gives the vessel a size and dimension to what we see. Now, we have the same thing in our relationship with Hashem. Because we're imagining, okay, Hashem, I need to get out of this difficult situation. How are you going to get me out? It's just my imagination. But when it actually happens, now I see it. Now I know it's there. So the seeing, he's saying the seeing, what happens when we see? We know exactly what's there. And what happens when we call out to Hashem and Hashem answers us? We know exactly what it's like to have that relationship with Hashem. That's his analogy here. Veda. So now we're on Bet. Veda, שהסתכלות שהיא התפיסה בשכל למה שראה, that seeing, which is what he says here, is when the mind interprets what's seen, בין הראייה גשמית ובין הראייה וההבנה רוחנית, whether it's between the physical seeing or the spiritual understanding of what the person is seeing, היא עושה כלי. So if we go back and just the text, v'da she'istaklut osa kli. You see how the Perush adds a lot more, a deeper meaning here. When we look at something and we understand what it is, then the looking makes a vessel. A kli is the vessel. Dahainu gvul uzman devar hanireh. That is time and limitation to what we see. So we see something, we place it in the time that it's in, we put it in the place that it's in, we have the physical dimensions of what it's in. Ki mikodem reuto hadevar, because before we see this thing, hainu hayedi'ah, that is before we know what we're seeing, she'titkaben mehari'ah, that we received from our vision, hu below gvul uzman. It's with, so just like I said before, if we don't know exactly what we're looking at, we just say imagine this thing. Imagine a bottle with water, a plastic bottle with water on a wood table in a beautiful room in Achlaot. Would it look exactly like this bottle on this table in this room? Probably not. But when you see it, now it has gvul uzman. It has a physical limitation and it has a time and a place. When a person sees the thing, it creates this physical limitation. And this is what our sages of blessed memory said in Yoma, ala pasuk, regarding the verse, v'yancha v'ya'ivcha v'yachincha et haman. So, and you were suffering, and you were hungry, and Hashem fed you the man. The man, of course, we know is the manna, and the manna had no taste. And it also apparently didn't create sova, satisfaction. You didn't feel full. And that's why he's bringing it here. Vikashe. So we have a question here. Harei achlu man v'lichora lo yitanu. This is in the Perush. So the question is, okay, we're saying that you suffered and you were hungry, so Hashem fed you the man. But if you ate the man, then you're not suffering, because here you're eating something. So you say, I'm starving, give me something to eat. I give you something to eat. You're no longer hungry. Umeshiv, but he's bringing this for a reason. And he answers, Ki eino domeh lemi shero'eh et ha'ma'achal. It's not the same as somebody who sees the object, because the man was this sticky white substance that tasted like anything that you imagined, but it wasn't like eating a piece of meat or a bagel or something that you really could feel it. It was just something spiritual that had a nice taste. But in food and the like, somebody who doesn't see it, mikan she'asuma ein lo sova. This is where it comes from, that a blind person isn't satisfied from the food that they eat. And I'm not sure if that's factually true. We have a friend who's blind. He's been to my Shabbos table. I've seen him eating. He does stop eating at some point. He also seems to enjoy the food very much. He touches everything. And I'm imagining this is something I have to ask him, that he doesn't have what I have, a fantasia. So he probably sees in his mind what he's eating, even though he probably doesn't know what the colors look like. He doesn't know exactly what it looks like. In his visual world, he has something. But the point that he's making is that if a person doesn't see, then they're not satisfied. And it could also be just if a person eats without looking, then they're not satisfied. Which is also an interesting thing. When people just eat mindlessly, they're not consciously eating and they're not satisfied. But he's making a point here. V'lechen ba'achilat haman, and so in eating the man, af she ta'amo bo ta'am kol ma'achal sheratzu, even though it had the taste of whatever anybody wanted it to taste like, mikol makom lo ha'u et ha'ma'achal sheratzu. So it tasted like pizza. Okay, there was no pizza back in those days. It tasted like whatever, falafel balls, but it didn't look like falafel balls. Ela ra'u man, but rather they saw this man. V'lechen adayin ayu re'evim v'lo hayata svi'atam shleima. And so they were still hungry, and their hunger was not satiated. U'mikevan shelo tafas makom b'me'ehem lahaspi'am. And since also it didn't take up any space in their stomach in order to fill them up, כי לא הוגבל בכלי הריאה להיות גבול של המקום. Because you're eating this sticky substance called man, and it doesn't create in your vision something that could fill you up. So I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat steak, but I can visualize steak, and I can imagine eating a big piece of steak. You have to be full afterwards. Probably if you closed your eyes and ate a big piece of steak, you'd also be full afterwards. But if you just drink water, and I said to you, the water is going to taste like steak. It's going to taste like the best, fanciest steak you ever had. It still doesn't take up space in your stomach like steak does, so it doesn't fill you up. Somebody who doesn't see doesn't have limitation to this thing. It doesn't take up space, as mentioned above. Now, why is he talking about all this? Because before we were talking about vision, and we're talking about our relationship with Hashem. And here, he says, when you see the thing happening, so you say, Hashem, I want to get married. Enough being single, right? Aryeh, it said to him, for 9 years, or however many years it's been since I've been in this class. By the way, I used to give the class before Corona. We had a room full of people, and then everyone started watching online. Only Arya stuck around.
9 years? Wow.
Something like that, 8 or 9 years. I said to him, and the merit of coming to this class, the last person that still comes physically to the class, you're going to get married. And here he meets me here at our Shabbos table. So a person davens to get married, and then they get married. That makes a gvul, a limitation, to the vessel, to the thing that they asked for, to the shefa that they asked for, and there's a sense of, yes, it actually happened. But if a person doesn't see it, so imagine you're davening for something and it doesn't happen. So you're davening again and again and again and again, and it doesn't happen, and you just don't get satiated from it because it never fills up space, even though the davening might give you some type of satisfaction because you're having this relationship with Hashem. You know that Hashem is listening to you. You know that your prayers are not just for nothing, but still it's not happening, so that's like eating the man. Maskana de Gemara, Mahikra, me'eze pasuk nilmad davar hazeh. So, and the conclusion of the Gemara is, what are we learning from this verse? Tichtiv is written in Kohelet, Tov mar'e einayim mehalach nefesh. And he has here an interpretation. So what it literally means is better that your eyes see, that your soul long for something. Tov lir'ot et hadavar be'einayim. It's better to see something with your eyes. Masher latet lanefesh litmotato. Than to give your soul the opportunity or the time to just imagine what it could be. Mibli liroto, without seeing it. So, like if I say, one day you're going to be rich. You are going to have millions of dollars. So you say, wow, I can try to imagine what it's like to have millions of dollars. But when you have millions of dollars, then you know what it's like. You don't have to imagine. It's there. Whatever it is, that's what he's saying. It's better to actually see the thing than just to have your imagination running. And it's hinted at in this, ki bekoach, in the power, hareut, oseh hiluch lenafsho. So when a person sees something, that gives the power to their soul to then grasp it. So let's go back to the $1 million or millions of dollars. So when a person davens to Hashem and says, Hashem, I'd really like to have millions of dollars so I can do Torah and mitzvot and support my family and give tzedakah and do all of these things and be a mensch, not just because I want to be like an obnoxious jerk, but I want to do good with it, Hashem, that's what I want the money for. And then it actually comes, like you have like $3-5 million in your bank account. That gives power to your soul to really grasping what you have. I think it maybe, and this isn't in the text, I'm just extrapolating from it, if a person wins the lottery, they don't appreciate the money in the same way that they get it slowly. Because it just came in one flash and they don't have the kelim for it. They don't have the vessels for it. But when a person says, okay, Hashem, this is my goal. This is what I want. I'm going to now build vessels for it. I'm going to build kosher vessels for it. I'm going to build business vessels for it. And the money starts to come. So what he says here, the quote that he has here, ki bekoach hareut oseh hiluch lenafsho. When a person sees something, it gives more power to their soul to connect with Hashem and ask for more and also appreciate what they have. V'hu hagvul. And this is, when we say gvul, limitation, this is what we mean. Peirush, meaning, al yedei koach hareut, through the power of seeing, hu aseh hiluch lema'achal u'mishteh ha'holech lenafsho. So when a person sees something, it gives more power to the food and the drink rather than just imagining in their soul and their heart what it might be. Hainu. Shvilei koach, shlavei koach hareut, ein lama'achal u'mishteh, b'bchinat gvul v'kli, ve'eno masbi'im oto. So the power of seeing is not enough. It's not enough to just eat and drink the food, but rather it won't satisfy a person unless they see it. So I guess in the same way, if I would tell you that you had $5 million in a bank account, but you can't see the bank account and you can never touch the money, so it would never make you feel like you actually had the money. Ulam, however, al yedei koach hareut, by actually seeing the thing, hamagbir kol davar b'makom hazman, that sets everything in place and time, yesh hiluch lenafsho v'hu sava ba'achilato. The person now, no longer the soul is just endlessly wandering around, but now it has satisfaction in the eating. Does that make sense? Okay. You're welcome to ask me questions. Mm-hmm. It's not too many. Okay. We have another guy that comes here, Koach. I have to stop him sometimes. He asks me too many questions. But didn't come tonight, so I don't have to stop. Okay. לאחר שבאר שההסתכלות עושה ידיעה וכלי להגביר את הדבר haner'eh b'zman u'makom. After he explained that by seeing something, it gives us understanding and knowledge. It makes a vessel and creates limitations to the physical object in place and time. Yeve'er, he's now going to explain, Shal yedei zeh yasig midat habitachon b'Hashem. Through this, he's going to explain that through this we achieve an aspect of trust in Hashem. V'zeu lebchinat ma'alat habitachon. And this is an aspect of the advantage of having bitachon. So I'm going to go to a footnote here. Yitachen הכוונה תיבה זו היא כי הביטחון הוא מעלה אולם אינו תנאי באמונה בהשם. It's possible that the intention in bringing this word here, ma'alat, the advantage, is because having faith in Hashem is an advantage. However, it's not a condition for having faith in Hashem. Meaning that just because things work out for you better when you have faith in Hashem is not the reason that you should have faith in Hashem. Ki efshar liot ma'amin gamor b'Hashem yitbarach, because a person can have complete faith in Hashem, ubechol ofen lo yeh lo bitachon, but still the person won't have bitachon. Okay, so now we have to make a distinction between emunah and bitachon, because that's what he's saying here. So a person can totally believe in Hashem. Let's say somebody's going through some difficulty, and you say to the person, "Where's your bitachon?" They say, "I don't know. I don't have any bitachon because I'm scared and I'm anxious." So you bring it back a step. Do you believe in God? Absolutely. So that's what he's saying here. He says having bitachon is not the condition for believing in God, but believing in God doesn't bring you to bitachon. Mishum katnut hadat, because of a small-minded consciousness. Shechoshev ki mechemat avonotav oshar cheshponot lo magia lo hanha'a shebitachon. Wow, it's fantastic. Because of a person's constricted consciousness, they think that because of the transgressions that they did, or some calculations that Hashem made, the person doesn't deserve to have the pleasure of having total faith in Hashem. So emunah is belief in Hashem, and bitachon is faith in Hashem. And the difference, which I defined before, is one, I believe that Hashem exists. The other is I live with that belief. So a person that has bitachon is not scared to go into whatever difficulty they have to deal with. Whatever it is, even good things, Like my daughter gave birth last night, and I never gave birth. I did experience a lot of births. My 20-year-old son was born in the car on the way to the hospital, and I caught him. I didn't do anything. I just caught him. And my wife is like, she did everything. But my point being, you have to have bitachon. You have to have real trust in Hashem in order to calmly give birth. And I can give my wife credit for this. She very calmly gave birth. I hear that my daughter also calmly gave birth. And to be calm in a situation like that, you need bitachon. That's why I'm bringing it. To know that, if the midwife were to shout at you, do you know that God exists? You say, yes, I know that God exists. So then why aren't you calm? Because I'm freaking out. A baby's coming out of me. But somebody that has bitachon, they don't get to that place. Just say, and the midwife says, now blow out a candle. I've seen this. You see the heads are coming out. Blow another candle. It pops out. They're all slimy and all this liquid comes out. I mean, when I had my son, I was holding him like this. My wife's like, just don't drop him on the floor of the car, because it's a very dirty car. Luckily, I didn't. Okay, so that's bitachon. So a person says, okay, yeah, I believe in God, but I don't have any trust in God. And so they behave just in the way of pure nature, right? So if a person doesn't have money, and they have, let's say, I'm speaking from personal experience here. So I had many times liens on my bank account. I didn't even know the word lien in English, yet alone in Hebrew. I had a doctorate in ikulim, which is the word in Hebrew. It hasn't happened in a while. It did happen not so long ago, but I paid it off right away. Anyhow, I had just no money to pay arnona. and I think it was 4,000 shekels or something like that. So I go to the area, and they'll give you discounts, they'll give you payments, and there's all kinds of things, but still, you have to pay for it. So I told them, look, I don't have the money. Give me a bill, and I'll pay it in the next 30 days. And so they gave me the bill, and I had 30 days to pay it, or I didn't even know what would happen. The whole world would blow up. And I just said to Hashem, okay, now I got to pay this bill, I got to pay this bill, I got to pay this bill. Now somebody who doesn't have emunah, they might say, I'm not even asking for Hashem, I have the bill, I don't have the money, so I'll take a loan. I already had loans, I couldn't take any more loans. I said, Hashem, got to help me pay this bill. In the end, the money came. I don't remember if it came from my grandmother, it came from work, it came from this way, it came from another way. The money comes. That's already the Bitachon. But somebody that doesn't have Bitachon, they won't even ask Hashem to help them. They'll just say, never mind, I'm taking a loan. I'll borrow more money. I'll borrow more money. I'll borrow more money. Rabbi Nachman is very strict about not borrowing money. It's also a hard thing to do, especially in this day and age when you literally can click on your phone and have money put in your bank account. Or take a credit card that has like a $50,000 credit limit and buy a car with it. It's totally insane. So it's something that I try to work on, not to borrow money and just say, Hashem, I'm not buying this thing, I'm not spending money on this thing, I'm waiting for you to send me the money. That's bitachon. But somebody who doesn't have that, so then they have to do things according to nature. V'chon zeh hu ta'ut gedola. And all of this is a big mistake. K'mo shekatav mahonat b'tfilato an Torah zo. So we have Likutey Moharan, we have Likutey Halachot, and we have Likutey Tfilot. We have all these Likutim. Likutey Tfilot is Reb Nassim, Mahonat is Moharan Rabbeinu Natan. That's Mahonat, like we have Moharan Rabbeinu Nachman. And Rabbi Nachman, I don't know if he asked him to do this or not, but he wrote a prayer for every single one of the lessons in Likutey Moharan. And it's essentially a summary. So really what you're supposed to do is when you finish a lesson, you're supposed to read the prayer, which I think we did if we had a short period where we were doing that. But I felt like it just reviewed everything that we did, and it was getting annoying because I wanted to move on to the next lesson. But here's a little section of the prayer for this lesson here that gives us a summary. V'tizakeni lemidat bitachon be'emet b'shleimut gadol. You could see also there was no opan back then because you would say shleimut gadola. And let me merit that I have the attribute of faith in Hashem, trust in Hashem, truly in a total complete way. V'yeh chazak v'amitz v'bitachon liftoach be'emet b'chasadecha harabim. And I am strong and courageous in my trust in Hashem, that I truly trust in Hashem and your abundant kindness. Shetashu v'terachem alai, that you'll have compassion and you'll be compassionate with me. V'tashpia v'titein li kol tzarki b'gashmiut v'ruchniut, that you'll give me all of my needs in a physical and a spiritual way. V'titein li parnasati b'shleimut u'parnasat hanefesh u'parnasat haguf, that you will give my physical livelihood and also my spiritual livelihood and also the livelihood of my body. So, money, spiritual and physical. B'kedusha b'tahara gedola, with great holiness and purity. V'titein li kol tzarki u'bemoado, that you give me all of what I need in the time, b'zmano, and in the right place and time. K'mo shekatuv, as it's written, Einei cholelecha yisabeu v'ata noten lehem et achlam b'ito. Our eyes called out to you in longing, and you answered us at the right time. You gave us what we needed to eat at the right time. Afan pi sha'asiti ma sha'asiti, despite me doing what I did. V'kinkalti ma shekinkalti, and I messed up what I messed up. V'pagamti ma shepagamti, and I caused the damage in the relationship with you, Hashem. V'hereoti et ma'asai v'kipachti et parnasati asher lefi ma'asai hara'im, and I screwed things up with my actions, and I made smaller my parnasa because of my terrible actions. Ani rachok me'od me parnasa. I'm very distant from having parnasa, meaning deserving that Hashem should send me parnasa. Af al pi chen, nonetheless, eftach becha. I'm still trusting in you, Hashem. Ki lo ta'azveni le'olam b'chasadecha, because I know that your compassion, your kindness will never abandon me. Ki rachamecha rabim Hashem, because Hashem, you're called the one that's full of compassion. V'rachamecha rabim ma'od, and you truly are full of compassion. V'ata tov v'mitiv le'ra'im le'tovim, and you're good and kind to the good and the bad. Tov l'kol, good to everyone, everything. K'mo shekatuv, tov Hashem l'kol v'rachamav on kol ma'asav. Hashem is good to everything and compassionate with all of his creations. Okay, so that's the introduction to the word ma'alat. V'zeu b'chinat ma'alat bitachon. This is the advantage or the elevated state of having bitachon. So now after reading the footnote, reading those words, it has a deeper meaning. Ki bitachon u'b'chinat istaklut. Because what is bitachon? It's connected to seeing. Bitachon, which means trust in Hashem, bitachon b'Hashem perusho listaken. What does it mean to have trust in Hashem? It means to see with your eyes. Dahainu shemistakel v'tzofeh beinav laHashem yitbarach levad uboteach bo. That a person only looks towards Hashem and trusts only in Hashem. That's what bitachon is. Meaning, you don't see alone. You don't see, let's hustle. You only see Hashem. So maybe you need to take a loan, and maybe you need to hustle, but that's only after you've asked from Hashem, and it's clear to you that that's the action that you're supposed to take right then and there. B'bchinat HaKatuv, as is written in Tehillim, Einei cholelecha yisabeu. Einei kulam nesoot elecha Hashem limalei dai mechaseram. That our eyes look to Hashem in order for Hashem to give us what we need. That's Einei kol elecha yisaberu. And it says that everyone's eyes rise up to Hashem in order to give us what we're lacking. And it's explained, Bitachon na'aseh al yadei istaklut. How is trust in Hashem created? It's created through seeing. As we say in English, seeing is believing. I'm sure in Russian they have like a worse phrase than that. You know, there is no seeing without believing, or there's no believing. It's only seeing. That's it. There's no believing, there's only seeing. That's got to be the Russian version. Ki alidei istaklut b'bitachon el Hashem, by seeing with eyes that trust in Hashem, and we see that we trusted in Hashem, we see that Hashem gave us what we asked for. Gam ken osek li, a person also creates a vessel. Dehainu gvulos man shefa, that is a limitation in time and place for the abundance that Hashem wants to send us. That needs to come down for that person. In order for a person to receive the abundance that Hashem wants to give them, they have to have bitachon. They have to have trust in Hashem. So if I go back to the example, I need to pay this debt to the city hall, and I ask Hashem, I say to the guy in city hall, in 30 days, I'll pay it. Now this has actually happened to me. People will say, well, how are you going to pay it? You don't have any money, or the best is with the bank, because they can look at my bank account and they know everything that's going on. They're like, well, you've had a minus for like the last 10 years, and you never have any money, and how are you going to pay this? So whenever they ask me, I say, I'm davening. Exactly, they laugh. They laugh on the phone. And they say, what's so funny? They say, well, is davening going to pay it off? I said, I don't know. Ask me in 30 days. And it always happens. It always happens that the debt is paid one way or another. Now he says here, in order to have the vessel to receive that abundance, you have to have bitachon. So the bitachon is what creates it. And how do you have bitachon? By speaking in a way that expresses bitachon. So when you tell the bank, I'm davening and I'm waiting for Hashem to send me the money, I've literally said these things to the bank. And the second that Hashem sends me the money, I'm giving it to you because I don't want it. It's yours. But I have to wait for Hashem to send it to me first. It's actually really fun to say it, because they think you're totally insane or a tzaddik or I don't know what, but it makes you feel really good, because that's what he's saying here. What is bitachon? Bitachon is histaklut. It's seeing, because in another way, if I were to say it in a different way, if I were to say to the bank, I see the money right there. I just have to go there and get it, and then I'm going to give it to you. That's what he's saying is bitachon, but you don't see it. Hashem sees it. Yeah.
isn't this, so the previous paragraph was kind of talking about like actually like seeing versus like imagining, like this idea of like imagining something versus like physically seeing it.
Right.
And now he's saying Bitachon is like istachlut, but that's kind of like you're not seeing the thing, right? So it's almost like that do you understand my question?
Yeah, and it also makes sense because Rabbi Nachman never writes things in a straightforward way. He always writes things in layers, on top of layers, and mixes in the last phrase that he used in order to explain the one he's using now when there's no connection to it whatsoever. Like we finished this, hiluch lanefesh hu sova leachirato. When a person is finally satiated, they're no longer hungry. Like satiated when the prayer that they asked for is fulfilled, they're no longer hungry. Well, where did the hungry come from? Hungry came from the man. So that's how he builds it. But what he's saying here is that when a person really has bitachon, it's the equivalent of having vision. It is a type of seeing, right? We have chokhmah, bina, and dat. So chokhmah are facts. Bina is I take one fact and another fact, and I extrapolate from that a third fact. So I know that that's hot, and my hand is flesh. And if I put my hand on the fire, I'll get burned. So that's already bina. I have the two facts, and now I have bina. But what's dat? Dat is a third vision. It's a third understanding. It's seeing Hashem's presence in the world. So when you are aware of Hashem, even though the other things I talked about are physical things that you can actually see, when you're aware of Hashem, now you have dat. So in order to have the histaklut of bitachon, in order to have the vision of trust in Hashem, you have to have trust in Hashem, and then you'll have an equivalent of dat in your vision. Even though it's not a physical vision, it's a spiritual vision. And it's a vision that can carry a person because they'll be able to say, I know that Hashem will pull me through this problem. I don't know how, and I don't know what it'll be like when it's all over, but I know that Hashem can do it. How do you know? You know because you see. He's saying your bitachon is so clear, it's like you're seeing something. Before we talked about imagining something as opposed to seeing something, and eating the man as opposed to eating real food. And now he's saying the difference between trusting in Hashem and actually trusting in Hashem is when a person gets to the point that they're trusting in Hashem is like seeing, that's true trust in Hashem. Okay, I see we only have 5 minutes left, so that's where I'm going to leave the lesson for this week. We'll continue next week. I have a little short story. Yizat Hashem. You have another question?
So in that, would you need to experience, like have an experience that is what causes you to have bitachon, just that you know to trust in Hashem?
Yeah, the more experiences you have, the more your trust in Hashem will be.
Okay. Yeah.
You know the ropes course where they catch you? The more times people catch you, the more that you trust they'll catch you. I'm guessing people that jump out of planes with parachutes, the first time they're not so crazy. There's videos of people that jump out of planes without a parachute. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Their friends had parachutes.
I've seen them.
Oh, that also. There's one guy that landed on a totally insane.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? This guy jumps out of a plane. There's a big net. And he aims for the net and hits the exact center, and it catches him.
Wow.
And this is before AI. Now you got to really look closely. Is that AI? Wait, they tricked me with AI again? No, it's going to get better. Okay, so there were these 2 Hasidim of the Shinover Rebbe, and their business was, and the Shinover was, it says here, Halbertstam, somewhere here. Okay. The Shinover Rebbe was, let's go back. These 2 Hasidim, and what was their business? They cut down trees in the forest. So they would rent the forest for a year, and as the trees grew, they would cut them down, and they would sell the lumber. And they had a third partner, who was Reb Moshe was his name, and he wasn't a Chassid. Now the way it worked is all summer, they would cut the wood, they would put it next to the riverbed, and they would wait for the rain to come, and then put it in the riverbed, and it would be carried down to the lumber mill where it was processed. And I've been asked this question before. How did people know which lumber belonged to which merchant? They probably put paint on it or something. each piece of lumber. So it was counted for the merchant. Okay, that particular summer, there was no rain. There was a drought in Poland. And they were cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting, and they had tons and tons of wood, but there was no rain. And so they didn't put it in the riverbed. Like they didn't put it in the river because there was no river. But they were worried that if they waited too long, it would start to snow, and it wouldn't go down the river at all, and they would lose all their money, and they go bankrupt. So these two Hasidim, Reb Aaron and Reb Yitzchak, they decided to go to their Rebbe. Here he is, Yechezkel Shraga. Rebbe Yechezkel Shraga Halberstam, the Shinover Rebbe. And their third partner, Reb Moshe, who wasn't a Chassid, he didn't want to go to the Rebbe. So the two of them go to the Shinover and they say, Rebbe, we need help. There's a drought. We're going to lose all of our money. And the Rebbe said, with all due respect, only Hashem can make it rain. You know, as great as a tzaddik you might think I am, it says in the Gemara that only Hashem can make it rain. So, and he said, am I God? There's no quote from where in the Gemara it says that. You have to figure it out for next class. He says, am I God? I can't do that. So they started telling him, but Rabbi, you don't understand. We hire all these Jewish workers and we give a lot of tzedakah, and also the goyim that we work with, they're going to be upset that we owe them money and all these things. And he says, okay, if that's the case, then I have an idea. He said, I can't make it rain, but I have an orphan that's related to Reb Elimelech of Lezhensk, who was one of the great rabbis, and the brother of Reb Zusha. There for Yael, brother of Reb Zusha. I have somebody who watches the class that always wants Reb Zusha stories. I've told every Reb Zusha story I could find. We have a Reb Zusha book at home in Hebrew. I have to get to that. So the Shinover Rebbe says, there's a segula that if you give money to help a poor descendant of Reb Elimelech, then whatever you ask for, Hashem can answer. So we have an orphan that's related to Reb Elimelech, and she's getting married soon, and if you two will pay for all the wedding expenses and the dowry and pay for everything, then I guarantee you Hashem will make it rain. Right away they took the money out, they put it on the table. And they go back to the forest, and their partner Reb Moshe comes back from visiting his wife and kids, and they continue chopping down the trees, and the other merchants are on the other side of the river, and they're cutting down their trees. And these Hasidim already put the trees in the riverbed, even though there's no water there. And Reb Moshe, to his credit, also put the wood in the riverbed, even though he said they looked at the sky completely blue, no rain coming anywhere. And for an entire week, there was no chance of rain, and they just kept putting the wood in the riverbed, waiting for the rain to come. And they said to the other merchants, it's going to rain. We did what our Rebbe said, it's going to rain. And sure enough, it started to rain. And all the logs that everybody else had in the forest, the water came and threw them all over the place. But as soon as that water started coming down the river, it took the logs of the Hasidim and the one Misnagid all the way down to the bottom. Lucky for him, he had Hasidic partners in business. And of course, why did that happen? It was because of their Bitachon, it was because of their faith in Hashem and the Tzaddik. That's the story, okay? Not a developed story, but a sweet story. Let's play a little nigun, and then we'll continue again next week. Be'ezrat Hashem. Why did I say not a developed story? Because I have a podcast of stories. I don't know if you know that, of Hasidic stories. Because the Hasidic stories that I work on, I really develop the stories. So eventually I'll tell the story. It'll have a better ending than that one. All right, what are we going to sing? I'm gonna la 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 la.